I was whoa. I was just joshing. I wasn't really talking on the phone, but I just wanted to act like this thing here is going to drive Sarah Moon crazy. I promise you. She's already tired of it. She didn't even laugh when I brought it home. You can hear me good. I'm glad you can because I got a lot to talk about, and I want you to join me in this segment. A couple of things that we've been talking about. The thing I don't think that I've really heard people say is if you take a look at the Syrian refugee issue, it's so over the top. It is so over the top that how do we look at this and say that it's serious? Democrats are saying that we welcome the refugees because we're noble and we're kind and we welcome you. Now they're framing the discussion and coloring the conversation by saying the racist Islamophobic Republicans, though, these guys are awful. They're the real problem. And one thing Democrats will not allow to happen, one thing Democrats are not going to let happen, they're not going to let ISIS get in the way of the real threats. And the real threats in America are what? You know what they are? Climate change, Islamophobia, and hurtful speech, as Jack on Twitter pointed out. I mean, isn't that the truth? Democrats say it's not ISIS. Okay, they're not the real threats. Look at Republicans. And Obama, by the way. It wasn't enough for our so-called president to just ridicule Republicans and say that Republicans must be scared of widows and orphans. That wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to say that they're racist and Islamophobic. Now he's saying that what Republicans are doing by calling for the rule of law and calling for immigration laws to be followed, what Republicans are doing, says our so-called president, is it's the best recruitment tool that ISIS could hope for. Now, you think about that. It's gone from insulting Republicans, ridiculing Americans, not just Republicans. Although I will say this, I haven't found too many Democrats who will say that this is wrong. One thing about Democrats is, and this is something, it's not a virtue. Democrats stick together, and it's not a virtue. Listen, Democrats used to be against the Patriot Act. Now they are for the Patriot Act. And they're for the Patriot Act because they never wanted to use it against foreign terrorists in America. They wanted to give foreign terrorists in America the finest attorneys. They're for it now because they think Obama will use it against the real threats to America, Republicans. That is why they love the Patriot Act. Democrats used to be for transparency, no more secrecy. Now they love secrecy because they think under the cover of darkness, maybe Republicans will get hauled out and Florida can be filled with Syrian refugees and they can all just get along at the pool. Do you know what justice is? Justice is not always easy to explain. I have a friend who says it's easy to explain. It's when everybody gets what they deserve. I still think that's a little vague. But it's kind of like porn. I know it when I see it. Now, come on now. It was the Supreme Court that said that, right? When they were trying in the 80s to define porn, they said, we know it when we see it, which made me wonder what they'd been doing all those hours back there deliberating. Now, I know it when I see it too, okay? And so do you, so stop. I know justice when I see it. Here's justice. Here's justice. Justice is whenever a Democrat loses his doctor. Am I right or wrong? Who loves the movie It's a Wonderful World with Jimmy Stewart? I love it. My youngest daughter is 11 and a half, and she loves that movie. You know, every time an angel gets his wings, you hear a bell, right? Every time you hear a bell, an angel gets his wings. If I could, in America, every time a Democrat lost his doctor, you would hear that. And we would say that is a wonderful life. Because That would be justice. Democrats forced us to lose our doctors. They ought to lose their doctors. And not only should they lose their doctors, which they are, we ought to be notified so we can celebrate. And I'm telling you, I get so excited about it. I for a while there, I was doing a Palestinian happy dance. Do you know how Palestinians act when they blow up Jewish children? They love it. They dance around. Look, we killed some Israelis. That's how happy I'm going to be every time I hear a Democrat lose his doctor. I'm telling you, that's justice. Here's what else would be just. Is the Democrats who say, come on in, Syrian rebels. We welcome you. We love you. Bring it. Get in here. Everybody gather around. Boy, all these kids look big. All toddlers and widows, but they all look 25 to 30. And golly, you guys can walk before you crawl. These Syrian rebels are something, aren't they? What would be justice is here in Florida where I live. Do you know I live in the spring break capital of the world? Some of you say, well, that explains porn when you see it. I live in the spring break capital of the world, Panama City Beach, right? And what would be justice is if all the local Democrats who hate Republicans more than they love America, think about what I just said. They hate Republicans more than they love America because the Syrian refugee crisis is so far over the top. It is so ridiculous and outrageous. It's absurdity on crack. And the only reason that they're doing it is because they hate Republicans more than they love America. And I have learned that Democrats, as long as Republicans are upset, they don't care. They'll lose their doctors. But here's going to be justice. You let the Syrian refugees come in, and before you know it, on the beach, the ladies, you got to change the way you look. I mean, that right there is offensive to the Islamic males. Not only that, the Islamic females aren't real thrilled about it either. Now, so what we're going to do, we're going to start measuring how high your suit is above your knee. And before you know it, you're going to be wearing one of those, what are they called? What are those things called that the Islamic women have to wear? Are they hijabs? What are they called? Somebody help me out. Burqas, thank you very much. Bikini burqas for sale right here all along Panama City Beach. You know who might be thrilled about it? Sean Hannity. Right? Sean Hannity might be happy about it because Hannity doesn't like what goes on in Panama City Beach. Now, Sean Hannity gets a filtered version of what goes on in Panama City Beach, but now is not the time. Sean Hannity just doesn't know what's going on here. He's being played, and no Republican, no conservative would be for what the great forbidders are doing in Panama City Beach. Picking and choosing businesses to close down, picking special treatment zones, forbidding and outlawing anyone under 21 from entering a restaurant that serves beer after midnight. You think conservatives ought to do the special treatment zones? Shutting down some businesses that they don't like scooter businesses? Listen, Sean Hannity does not have the whole story here, and we're trying to get it to him. We like him too, but he's wrong as hell on this issue. But I can't get into that right now. But I do think Sean would be happier if maybe the girls would, had these over him rather than these 3 hours a day. Look at these kids. Wow, look at these kids. That kind of thing. Now, I don't want to spend all of our time where everybody else is spending their time. I really tried to give you some of the basics about the Syrian refugee crisis. And again, if we had little columns, as I wrote down earlier, it would be this. Number one, Obama is treating illegal aliens and Syrian refugees better than he's treating American citizens, especially better than he's treating veterans. Can I get an amen on that? Number two, another thing that Barack Obama is doing is saying that the federal government has full say on immigration. Now, while it's true that the states delegated immigration power to the federal government, what the states never agreed to, and this is important, the next time you hear somebody say, I thought you were for the Constitution says the federal government's in charge on immigration. It says no such thing. It does not say that the federal government can invade states and subjugate states with refugees, especially when Congress has not passed a law on that. Now, the federal government gave Congress the authority to decide immigration status, but it never gave the federal government the authority to invade states and subjugate states, while the president makes up his own rules along the way with his phone and his pen. Never does the Constitution say that. You got to know that. It's very important stuff. And number three, the morality of it. And we ought to probably spend a minute on the morality of it. Do you agree that we should? Because a lot of people say, you're a Republican, right? Therefore, I thought that your Christian values said that you have to embrace the stranger. Listen, WWJD, right? What was Jesus doing primarily? One of the things he primarily did. He was standing against the oppressive government of Rome. Am I right or wrong? Jesus wasn't saying that we should bow down to the Romans. That's not what he was saying. That people who do this, what they are doing, and this is important, is they are conflating morality with government. And when you do that, you ready for the most important thing I can say? I'll borrow this from Pastor J.C. Hall. This is one you may want to write down. When you conflate, you're going to love this. When you conflate morality with government, you are putting the government above the gospel, and that is a form of idolatry. Can I get an amen? Am I right or wrong about that? When you put the government over the gospel, when you conflate the two and you act as though the government is moral, you are committing a form of idolatry. You're putting the government above the gospel. You cannot do that. And those who try to do that to show, in a failed attempt to show, the hypocrisy of American Christians, they're confusing a whole lot of things. And they do it on purpose. They either do it on purpose or they do it because they're just angry and they don't understand. But I'm going to tell you something. The government, what I like to say is, and I've gone into this before, but I'll just say the statement. I got to move on. God loves you. The government does not. And if you don't remember that, you'll be reminded of it over and over in your life. I promise you that. God loves you and the government doesn't. And one bit of proof I will give you is God allows you free choice. God gives you free agency. He tells you what's right and wrong, but if you do wrong, he won't strike you with a lightning bolt. Let me give you an example. If you text and drive, and God knows that's wrong now, the government will strike you down, but God won't, right? Yeah, but if you're not doing anything wrong, Burnie, according to whom? Boy, I'll tell you what, these people who say, I don't mind if the government's watching me, right? I don't mind because if you're not doing anything wrong, what do you have to worry about? To which I always say, you would make a great North Korean, right? You would make a great Cuban if you're not doing anything wrong. I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't mind if I'm being watched. Boy, you'd make a great Cuban. Because there's another question. According to whom? See, what used to be okay yesterday, the government makes wrong tomorrow. What used to be okay yesterday, the government makes wrong tomorrow. So you say, well, I don't know if I'm not doing anything wrong. Well, what the hell? Do you know what is considered illegal? They'll strike you down in California. I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to commit a crime. If I were driving, you got to imagine I'm driving though, okay? If I'm driving right now and I do what I'm about to do, they will pull you over in California. And by the way, I was born in California. I was born in Northern California, near Lake Tahoe, about 50 miles south in a little town called Hangtown. I was born in Placerville, California. So this would be a crime in California. I got it again. If I'm driving and I got this on my, you cannot talk on the phone in California while you're driving. It's against the law. Now, it used to be legal when they had some damn sense in that state, but now they won't. So one of the problems with saying as long as you're not doing anything wrong is what is okay today will be wrong tomorrow. Because I'm telling you, every session, the legislatures get together and they say, okay, here are a list of things that citizens are still allowed to do, right? And then they start finding out what we should make illegal, okay? That's what they do. Your rights are never more imperiled than when the legislature is in session. Who agrees with that? Listen, if I were the king, if I could do this one thing today, here's what I would do. I would say that the legislature, if you want to pass one law, you have to remove two from the books. You want to talk about getting America on the right track? It's kind of like if you plant a tree, or rather, if you cut down a tree, you got to plant a tree, you know, that kind of thing. Mine would be, if you want to pass a law, you got to remove two from the books. That would do what? Expand freedom and protect the family budget. That's what that would do. It would expand freedom and protect the family budget. That's one thing I would do. But the point I want to make right now, though, is I think the Syrian refugee crisis is really a deflection. And it's a deflection of a lot of things. But the most important thing is it is so over the top. The discussion of allowing 100,000 Syrian refugees in America, the same federal government that gave welfare to the Boston bombers, the same federal government that allowed the 9/11 terrorists to overstay their visas, say, no, we got this. We got this. We're cool in the gang. Bring them on in. We all know that's not true. And the only reason the Democrats are supporting it is because they will support anything Obama wants to do for two reasons. One, they are in the throes of Obama idolatry. And number two, because they hate Republicans more than they love America. Am I right or wrong? Hey, by the way, I should open up the phone lines if you want to join me. Phone number is 850-252-8260. Put it on speed dial. If I ever hit a topic and you've got a question or a comment or a challenge, I would love to be able to do that. You know, I got to tell you something else that's been bothering me a lot, and it's the VA. And it's even not just the VA itself, it's the political theater that went on. And even Republicans. The Republicans in the Congress never did fix the VA. Oh, they all stood there and said how one of the things politicians love to do is say how much they love veterans. They don't love us. I'm a veteran, by the way. I'm a former Air Force captain. They do not love us. As a matter of fact, they are showing, even the GOP Congress is showing more love to illegal aliens, Obama's dreamers, and to, even though they're talking a big game, they're already budgeting money for Obama's hopers, which I think we're going to start calling, we're going to start calling the Syrian refugees, his hopers, right? The hopers and dreamers. I can already see it. I've told this before. I can already imagine the Kermit the Frog song, right? The lovers, the dreamers, and me, right? The hopers, the dreamers, and me. But there's no room for you. Not if you're an American citizen, there's no room for you. But I'm a Democrat. You watch. Justice is on its way. I'll tell you, that's the only thing that makes me happy, too, is knowing that Democrats, and when I see them, you know what I do? I walk into my favorite saloon, and I say, hey, my Democrat friends, you know, just like that. And I say, have you seen your doctor lately? And they get a long face. I say, what's the matter? Did you lose your doctor? Ha! And I laugh at him. Ha! Hey, look, this Democrat lost it. You should let. When I walk into my saloon, everybody knows it. I really don't. I really don't mean that. I don't really do that. But I want to. I really want to do that. But I'll tell you what. If I could, this would make me happy today. Anytime a Democrat loses his doctor, the bell goes off, just like in It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart, right? Every time the bell goes off, an angel got his wings. God, I wish. And I would even let it happen on my phone. Just ding. If my phone dinged every 2 seconds, you know how you always got to, okay, I got to get this setting off, right? We got to get this setting off my phone because if I get a message on Facebook, ding, right? You got to get them all up. My whistle doesn't work. You do notice that I'm 48, and my whistle sometimes works great and sometimes not so great. And you never can tell. Does anybody else notice that at my age? It works sometimes. Sometimes I'm as good as I ever was. And then sometimes not so much. I can never tell when it's going to work just right. But, the bell and the whistle, sometimes it works halfway. You can only get what you can on the whistle. But I don't care if it went off all the time. And it would never get old to me. It's like my new phone I have that I use. Do you know I cannot wait till I get in my car and I try. Even if I'm going to call people I haven't called in years, just so I can drive with this on my ear, because it plugs into my phone. See, and I get more attention now driving around in my car, like this. People, they'll speed up. I swear it's so true. See, it plugs into my phone, and I drive around with it now. Life is so much happier than it was, and it could be even more happier. It could be even more happier if a bell would go off every time a Democrat lost his doctor. Now, I was going to give you the phone number, but I want to get into the VA situation. The VA has not been fixed. The GOP Congress is scrambling. I don't care what you hear. They are scrambling to come up with money for Obama's hopers for the new Syrian rebels. They are not fixing the situation so veterans can go to a local healthcare facility and be treated. They're not doing that. But they are rounding up money, aren't they, for illegal aliens and for Syrian rebels. And the message I want to leave with you today are a couple. And you don't really hear these, I don't think. Number one, the Syrian refugee crisis is so over the top. It is there to deflect our attention from other things. And those other things are as boring as unsexy as it sounds. Those other things include the national debt that is skyrocketing. There is no more limit on the debt ceiling. There's no limit because the GOP Congress, John Boehner and Mitch McConnell, gave blank checkbooks to Barack Obama because they didn't want to be accused of shutting down the government anymore. So now we have the criminality that emanates from the White House. That is what the Syrian refugee crisis is here to do. And you know what? These so-and-sos, they don't really care about real-life consequences. They don't really care about the real-life consequences of the national debt, which is the amount of money, the amount of back taxes that the government owes us. If I ever ran for office, and I'm not, what I would talk about is that very thing. That is the national debt you have to explain is the amount in back taxes that the government owes us. All right. The VA situation is still not fixed. The focus is not on the VA. The focus is not on fiscal responsibility with our federal government. And now our president is pitting Americans against each other by painting out the Syrian refugee situation as a morality tale instead of a rule of law. Now, this is another point I really hope that you'll remember. When you talk about the Syrian refugee situation, you've got two things going on at the very least. You've got one, the rule of law, which is what this is about, and secondly, the morality issue. But the morality issue, it is in no way moral to take from to prioritize illegal aliens and Syrian rebels over American citizens and veterans. That is not moral, and that's what every American, not just Republican, do you agree? That's what every American ought to be saying. All right, that's going to wrap it up. If you want to join us live on this show, you can do it on YouTube because we stream live on YouTube at 1 o'clock Central Time. Yeah, live on YouTube. You just have to go to My Freedom Radio. My Freedom Radio live on YouTube. You can also go there and watch the replays. And, of course, on Fox 28, WPGX. But if you want to watch it live, another good way to do it is to download the Periscope app on your phone. Download the Periscope app and follow me at Burnie Thompson, Burnie, and you can watch the show live on Periscope or on YouTube. And, of course, you can catch the podcast on myfreedomradio.com. Thanks so much for being with us. I'm Burnie Thompson, and I will see you tomorrow.